Hello, everyone. Welcome to Drumfills Cafe. My name is Denis, and welcome to the second English episode of this fourth season. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. As usual, I urge you to go check out the YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram pages of Drumfills Cafe, and of course, our website, drumfillscafe.com. Tonight, I have the pleasure of inviting two guests, of course, two very different style drummers, but very interesting drummers. The first one I had the pleasure to study with back in the day at Carleton. He is the main drummer for The Commotions, Jivewire, and Trevor Alguire. I don't know why I have trouble saying that, but it's Trevor Alguire. He is currently one of the main teachers also at Carleton University and owns and, of course, teaches at his own drumming academy called Jeff's Drum Academy. Please welcome Jeff Aslin. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Denis, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good. I don't know why I had trouble saying Alguire, but it's nervousness, I guess. How are you doing? Where are you now?
Right now, I'm actually just in my studio. Okay. My wife and I thought it was a great idea to move over the pandemic. So we moved houses, and this is actually pretty much brand new. It's only been done for about a week now. So wow. I'm still putting up baffles and stuff like that for my recording side. Okay. But just like everything else in the world right now, everything's on back order. So I have to wait a couple weeks. So
right. And what prompted the move to a bigger studio, or?
You know what? It was just where I live in Ottawa. The market was well everywhere in Canada. It just was crazy, and we just saw kind of an opportunity to kind of capitalize with the market and kind of buy low and sell high, and that's kind of what we ended up doing, and kind of hope that we're going to be better off, right? So, yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I wish you good luck with that.
Thanks.
What I always like to do is to kind of pick out of curiosity what started you on the path of drumming and music. So, in your case, what was the path? What sort of got your interest?
Well, when I was about, I guess I was 11. My parents were very keen to put my brother and I have a twin brother, which you'll probably find out later when you start talking about the bands I play with. Yeah. But so we were, we weren't athletic. We weren't, really down different kind of paths and stuff like that. So my parents said, well, let's put him in music lessons. So I started off playing organ, and I did it for a couple of years. It wasn't my thing. But my cousin, who was like my hero growing up, and somebody that I still look up to today, he was a drummer. Okay. And I was like, he's got the coolest job in the world, and he's kind of pretty much the reason why I started. And then my parents started showing me like Phil Collins and Buddy Rich and all these different types of drummers to kind of get me started, and that's I kind of got hooked.
So were you more of a Buddy Rich fan from the start, or more of a Phil Collins, or was it all together?
Yeah, you know what? So I started with Phil Collins, like so many different drummers. Like, who doesn't want to play In the Air Tonight 1,000 times in a row? Exactly. So I did that, and then I kind of gravitated a little bit more towards Gene Krupa. So my parents were buying me these old Gene Krupa albums, and I would kind of like try at that time. I was like 13, 12, 13 to try to play along with them, right? And like Drumming Man and like all those kind of albums and stuff. And it was great. It was super, super fun. But I was more into that kind of style. Like I was still today, Gene Krupa is still one of my favorites.
Still your favorites. Okay, that's interesting. Because most of us, anyways, in my age, most of us started with the hairband stuff. And not necessarily the jazz stuff, but discovered the jazz stuff like later on, if you will. So it's interesting that you start from the jazz stuff right from the start.
Yeah.
So basically, from there, what did you do? Did you start doing lessons, taking lessons from people?
Did. Okay. I did. So I was really, really lucky. So my parents saw the value in paying for education, paying for music lessons, and they paid more money than I would probably care to think about, over the years. And I started like just at my local music academy where I live in Barrhaven, Ontario. And then I kind of went from there. And like I still, up until the pandemic, still took lessons. So like I took probably when I was about 15, I was really started taking it seriously. And there's a very popular drummer who now lives in Toronto called Larry Graves. And he used to play with Mr. Something Something, and he's got a lot of different kind of African influence ensembles that he plays with, and he's tremendous. He was such a strong force for me at that time when I was learning how to play. And he was showing me like, you know, the Cookbook by John Pickering and like all these different things. And he was a student of Chuck's for a little bit as well. So after Larry, I went to Montreal. When we went to Carleton together, I started studying with Chris McCann for about a year and a half. And then I went to Chuck Burrows, and then I studied with Chuck for a long time, probably about, I guess, 2.5 years. And then from there, I went to New York, and I studied with Ian Froman for 7 years.
Wow, cool.
I'm a very stubborn student. So 7 years, I studied with him. And then, but I was driving, because I obviously still live in Ottawa. So I was driving back and forth about every 3 weeks or so. 3-4 weeks to study with Ian. And then once I got back, I you know, probably took a couple, maybe 2 years off of lessons, 3 years off of lessons. And then I started doing online lessons with Ari Honig. And I did that right up until, I guess, right after my daughter was born. So I have to get back into it. Oh my gosh, he kicked my butt so many different ways. It was awesome.
I'm curious because some of us don't have that dedication to keep going. But what is it for you to keep going and to keep learning? Like, is it just natural? Or what is it with you?
Yeah, so I have a hard time finding direction without somebody maybe telling me where to go. You know, and I felt like that my whole life. And I think, you know, because I started taking lessons at a young age, I was never forced to learn anything on my own in terms of like, you know, finding out, like going through books and now like YouTube, you can learn anything from YouTube, right? Yeah. But like, I never had that. So I always had a teacher that kind of guided me to, this is what you should work on. This is what you should work on. So I was never like guessing, you know, like, oh, maybe I should do this or this. And you know, being with so many different teachers for such a long period of time, I never really got that for myself. So even today, like I would love to take lessons, and I did. Like I subscribed to like the Drumeo and the Mike Johnston online stuff as well. But I find, and they're great. There's nothing wrong with them. I love those two guys. They're awesome. But I found that I need individual direction. For myself, right? And so that's why I kind of sought out Ari Honig for a little while, and he was showing me a bunch of stuff.
Okay. So in the background, I think there's a drummer taking the lesson somewhere.
there is, yes.
we'll just ignore that for now. But that's really cool because that kind of comes to that question of like that. Yes, you can learn pretty much a lot on YouTube, but that sort of individual moment with your teacher, you know, it's sort of special, I guess, or you can kind of really adapt it to more to the student, I believe. But anyways, I don't know what's your thought on that.
Oh, 100%. You know, the big thing for me too to always, you know, look for a teacher was my world gets smaller. So like, you know, before I started taking lessons outside Ottawa, and Ottawa has great drum instructors. We have very, very, you know, we have a talented city for teachers and for drummers and all musicians. Like Ottawa's great. But once I started like going to Toronto, I took a couple lessons with Terry Clark, but then your world gets smaller because it's like, wait a minute, like you play regularly with Mike Murley, who's like my favorite, you know, Canadian saxophone player. And it's like that, my world just got smaller. And then, you know, I would go to New York, right? And like, you know, Ian would be like, oh yeah, well, Elvin Jones was my teacher. I'm like, what? Like Elvin Jones was your teacher? And then my world gets even smaller, right? So it's like, you know, your path to the greatest musicians in the world shrinks, right? And for me, you know, when I was looking for, or when I still am looking for teachers and looking for people to learn from, I want to go as close to the source of what I want to learn as possible, right? So like, you know, when I was deciding, you know, I want to learn how to play like contemporary jazz drumming, like a New York thing, right? So my choice was Ian Froman, who plays with like, you know, so many guys, you know, he's the guy to call, one of the guys to call anyway, in New York. So, because I wanted my world to shrink even more and learn from somebody who was taught by like greats like Elvin Jones and things like that. So, yeah.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I've never thought of it that way. Actually, it's Yeah, it's kind of like that 6 degrees of separation sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sort of kind of idea. That's interesting. Well, you spoke about one of the teachers. Of course, you spoke about Ottawa. It's impossible to not talk about Ottawa without talking about Charles Burrows, of course. Which I've also had the honor to go through the whole path with Chuck. You, of course, are now sort of the, of course, Chuck passed away, unfortunately, about 2 years, I believe now.
Yeah, it was in April of 2019.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Chuck Burrows was sort of the reference in Ottawa. For instance, Chuck would kind of correct you, but in a way that was very interesting. I remember, for instance, for me, when I walked into Steve's, because he was also the guy who kind of put the drum department at Steve's, picking out sticks and going, "Oh, I'm really good. I'm doing this." And he picked up a stick and he says, "Oh, well, you're holding them not correctly. You should do this." And he did it, and I was like, okay, so yeah. And anyways, he was a great guy. But you're now sort of the carrier, the tradition of his books, of his teachings. How did that come about?
So yeah, I was really honored. Long time ago. Oh my goodness, probably 5 years ago. So since I graduated from Carleton in 2004.
Right. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So I always kept in touch with Chuck. So we would go for breakfast, and I was kind of always after him to teach me more about his pedagogy, because I wanted to become a better teacher myself, and I had a lot of ideas and a lot of the transcriptions that I was giving my students, and I just wanted to make them easier to understand. And kind of learn, how he went from point A to point B effectively, right? Like to find the most efficient path for a student, because everybody learns differently, right? So we were always talking about that. And, there's a couple, obviously he had 12 titles of books that he had written over the years under his publishing company, which never really, I don't think, got the recognition that it deserved, because it didn't reach such a huge amount of people, because it was all self-published. He was making copies at his local Staples store, and binding them together and selling it to his students, and just local shops. So I'd say about 5-6 years ago, I was like, Chuck, we got to get these books out. We got to do something with this just to get the knowledge out there, because we don't want this to die with you, God forbid when that day, would occur. And he kind of sat me down. He's like, okay, so, what book you're interested in taking over? And I was like, well, definitely the Rudimental book, which is, we can talk about that in a second. And then another book called the Mobility book. And I said, I'm really interested in kind of doing something with those. He's like, okay, well, you can have them. I can sell the rights. And then he gave me a number, and I was like, I can't afford that. Because it was, I know he was only selling locally, but it was such a successful book that he was making a substantial amount of income from his books, right? So, to take that away from him, and at that point he was in his mid 60s, I guess. He would have been 64 or so, right? So, he was looking at his retirement and things like that, and just ways to build his wealth, into his golden years. Right. So he got sick, he passed on, and Billy, his I guess you can call him his stepson, really, brought me out for dinner one time or drinks or something, and he said, Chuck left you all of his publications with his publishing company. So that was in probably June of 2019. So, since then I've kind of looked at what I wanted to do with it, where I wanted to take it and whatnot. But to try to do it as respectfully as possible in the tradition of Chuck Burrows, not Jeff Aslin.
But how hard is it to just like you're talking to me about this book and the difficulties, how hard is it to get a book out there,
Yeah, you know what? I've learned a lot. So the book isn't out yet. It's in. So I took the Rudimental book. I changed a little bit of the format, and I added articulation, because in Chuck's book it was more of a blank slate, because he wanted the students, which he taught, to add their own articulation, and he would kind of go through it with the students. But I had to look at it as if nobody's really going to see the teacher or see the writer of this book or the editor or whatever. So they have to go through it with their teacher, or they have to go through it on their own. So I have to add all that articulation. I have to add all those dynamics and things like that. So I love drum corps stuff. I've been obsessed with his rudimental books. He has 2 of them out.
I still use them to this day. I still use them to this day.
It's amazing, you know, the wealth of knowledge. And going through all of his stuff, I found probably about 15 unpublished solos that accompany the book. Actually, maybe 20. And then I wrote a couple for the book as well, the ones that he didn't finish. So I compiled it all together, and then I was looking for an editor to help me go through it that had their own publications in rudimental music, but also had their own book deals and knew kind of how to take this to the market. So I found Matt Savage from the States, who has his own rudimental book, the Savage Rudimental Workshop, and he's outstanding. He's been working with a lot of the major drum corps in the United States. We've been meeting probably since over the past year. We've been meeting every 2 or 3 weeks, kind of going through the material, editing the material, you know, and just with articulation, maybe some alternative stickings, adding dynamics and things like that, just to make it as good as it possibly can. So we're in the final editing stage, and then I have a transcriber named Robin Petrie who's doing it all in a book format for me digitally. And yeah, so it should be out, I'm hoping, before 2022.
So long story short, not a one-man job.
No.
Not a one-man job. And this is like a couple of years now that you've been doing this? It
is, but like granted, like the pandemic definitely slowed things down. For me, like I had to shift, you know, for many months, I have to shift to my family just to make sure that I have 2 young kids. So I had to make sure that they were looked after and being cared for and stuff. And
of course,
yeah, just like the rest of the world, you know, we have to adapt.
Exactly.
But you know, I've started his second book already, the mobility book. So I'm about maybe 60 pages in, and I'm working with my colleague at Carleton University, Jamie Holmes. We're working on it, and I'm going to bring another editor into it as well. And I'm hoping to get that book out by the spring of 2022. So I think in total he has 12 titles. It's probably about a year a title to modernize it and to edit it and to bring it to the market. Yeah.
Crazy. Well, I wish you all the best, seriously, with that, because
thanks.
It is great material. It really kicked my beep. I can't say the word, but it really kicked me. And at the same time, it was fun stuff to do. It was just so fun stuff to do. And Chuck was just a joy to work with. So yeah, I wish you all the best with that.
Thanks.
Let's move on, because there's other stuff done besides that. And you have, of course, your own comic book. 2007.
Sorry, I just lost.
Sorry.
There we go. Now I can hear you.
The whole McDonald's thing happened. I said you have your drum academy since 2007. What prompted you to start a drum academy?
Well, to be honest, I was working for a local company called Hummingbird Music, and you know, as I increased my education, I didn't really need a private institution to find me students, right? And I had really good rapport with a lot of the local music teachers and the band directors for the all-star bands in Ottawa and stuff like that. So I kind of just decided to leave that and like branch out on my own, which, you know, made me more financially successful because I wasn't paying any middle guy or middle person like for lessons and whatnot. And, you know, I've always loved teaching. I get just as much of a thrill from teaching as I do performing on stage or touring and doing everything like that. So it's yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful and you know, so exciting to see a student develop over the years, you know, and especially when you have them for a while, like you're taking them when they're like 14, 15 years old, and you're seeing them through high school, and then they're going to university to study music, right? And it's such an exciting, you know, development to witness and to be a part of, and I absolutely love it.
Very cool. No, for sure. And of course, you know, that's the thing in Ottawa. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent actually,
Mhm.
and I remember, like, we're talking back in the day, of course, but I remember we had there's a couple of teachers that are really good, but you, like, I live in Gatineau, so you had to go across the river. You had to, have to find a teacher, that sort of thing. So the fact that you have that in Ottawa, I think, is amazing, because there's a lot of people, a lot of musicians in Ottawa, so a lot of drummers, anyways.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How is it difficult to have a sort of a drum academy slash music teaching business?
It's
Or what are the
this is
challenges,
all.
I should say?
Yeah. This is basically the only job I've really ever had is music. So I love being, independent. So along at Carleton, I really focused on getting a minor in business as well, because I think that music and business is one thing, right?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
you have to be able to sell yourself. You have to be able to sell what services that you offer. So it was a nice transition from, working from, with a private institution to going out on my own. Because I was very good at selling myself and showing the positive benefits that I can have, with students and whatnot.
Mm.
So I haven't really, to be honest, I've been really lucky. Like sometimes, at the beginning of the pandemic, obviously I was like, kind of a little scared, right? It's like, I'm going to lose my job because like I can't see students. But I really, showed the benefit of continuing education and doing it all online. So about 75% of my students were able to switch to Skype, and we've been doing it ever since, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm seeing students in person, but only maybe a third, right? Still 2/3 are still doing lessons online. So,
Okay.
we have our challenges, but being self-employed has so many benefits, and I work hard. I work as soon as I wake up. I work. And then I teach in the afternoon, and I, do my 6 or 7 hours of teaching every day. And then I'm done, and then maybe I'll do a gig or do something, right? So I've always made myself really busy. And I think that is one reason why I've been, successful at doing what I'm doing, and why I'm still able, to provide for myself and my family and whatnot, doing what I love, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Well, there's no other way, really. That's the way it is. There's no other way, basically. And it's interesting for people who are not in music. They don't understand the all the work that goes in the background, for a show, for a lesson, preparing the stuff for the student, giving the students the paper with the lessons that they have to go practice, the next student, so on and so on. There's so much background work that they don't see. So no, I know where you're coming from. I definitely know where you're coming from. And the business side, you're involved with the business side. How is that? I mean, has that also been very rewarding? How's that going for the academy?
Well, it's great. To be honest, it's not that much business, work for, I do obviously, the payables and whatnot. I have to do invoicing, once or twice a month, but it's pretty easy. I used to have to look at a marketing campaign toward the fall, but I'm busy. Like, I have a waiting list. I've had a waiting list the last couple of years for students trying to get in. So I haven't had the need to advertise, and it actually has allowed me to bring in 2 more teachers into my academy who also teach my program and whatnot. So it's been great. Like, I can't complain at all. It's been good.
Cool. And there's a program, you're saying. So from the start to the end, there's a program. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Which obviously follows a lot of the pedagogy from Chuck, but also a lot of my teachers, which they were really good teachers in the fact that I went to them. They knew exactly what I needed to work on. So it wasn't kind of like me looking at them and going, "Oh, what do you want to learn today?" I don't know what I want to learn. Like, they had a beginning, a middle, and an end on my path, right? So that's what I try to do with my students too.
No, I have to agree. That is some of the best ways to learn. And also I think the student sort of feels it, also sort of knows and sees the path they're taking, instead of like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do next time. Like, oh no, I have a goal. I'm going towards getting better at jazz, or I'm going towards better at rudimental stuff. So yeah, No, exactly. You did something a little cuckoo, which I commend you, which is 365 days of drumming lessons. So 1 lesson per day. Talk to me about that. You did that in 2018, I believe, on YouTube, on your.
I did. Channel. Yeah, YouTube and Instagram. So it all kind of started when I was kind of looking for stuff for me to learn. You know, I see something that I wanted to just check out, and sometimes the videos were like 25 minutes long. It's like, well, that's all I have to practice is 25 minutes today. So, and all of these videos were just like long, and and I wanted to basically make a series of lessons that were 60 seconds or less. So that was the whole premise, was like, 365 days of lessons in 60 seconds. Right. So what I do is I introduce a topic in the first couple of seconds, I demonstrate it, and then I, bring you guys the PDF, and it goes to my website, where I think it's still all listed, the 365 days. You can download all the PDFs for each of the exercises. And what I did is see if I can remember this. I made, 7 categories, right? 1 for each day of the week. And I followed that. So it was like, technique, and then reading, blues, jazz, rock, and Latin. And, so I just kind of followed that format and did a lot of my program that way.
Very cool. What was your reaction? What was the reaction from people from those videos?
It was great. Like I didn't do it for, to get tons of subscribers. It's because it's so like, the internet is so saturated with so many good lessons and so many good teachers and stuff like that. So I knew it wasn't gonna, bring me money or anything, but I just wanted to do it because it was something fun, and I wanted to prove myself that I could deliver those 365 days. Which was really tough, like it was a tough year. I had my daughter that year. So the morning we were getting ready to go, I'm downstairs at 6 a.m. writing and shooting a video so I can put it up, and then we went, and she had her C-section, came back home. Right. So it was a challenging year for sure. But it was so much fun. It was so rewarding. And there was a lot of very positive comments and whatnot, and encouraging students, on the internet, kind of helping me through it. But it was good.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot about the reading, about the jazz stuff. There's a lot of good stuff. I checked it out. It's on his website, of course, on the educational side, which we'll name the website at the end of the podcast. You're not just a teacher, of course. You're a player. You've played with a lot of people across Canada. Across basically international. Your main band, I think, is the Commotions, correct?
Yeah. So it's sure. So my brother, my twin brother, he plays saxophone. He used to play with the Funk Brothers when they did all their Canadian dates. So like the Funk Brothers, watch Standing in the Shadows of Motown, right? So they backed up everybody. Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight, The Temptations, Smokey Robinson. All these major Motown artists. It was one band backing them up called the Funk Brothers. And my brother used to tour with them, and he got into a great relationship with the lead singer Delbert Nelson, and he came and did an album with us, the first Commotions album, and he lives in Detroit. So we did a bunch of shows, but obviously it's hard bringing in somebody internationally to come and play with a local band. So we've kind of done our own thing for the last couple of years. We released Volume 2 with Jarvis Church singing as a guest singer, but with 2 local singers, Rebecca Noel and Jeff Rogers. Okay. And we're basically, a Motown funk band, right? So my brother writes in that vein. We have a couple of new songs on YouTube. One's called New Suit, and the other one is called the Trooper Strut. So one thing about my brother and I is that we are Star Wars fanatics to an unhealthy degree. So, the Trooper Strut is about, a dancing stormtrooper. So don't sue us, Disney, please. I love Disney. Don't sue us.
Please promote our video or our music. Or
promote it. Yeah. But it's great though. It's such a fun band, and I get to, back in the day, I was doing a lot of touring with my brother. We were both playing with the J.W. Jones Blues Band, who later just became J.W. Jones. So we did a lot of touring in our early days once we graduated from Carleton. So it's nice to play, full time in a band with my brother and actually in an hour I have to leave for a show with him. So
oh, okay. Okay. Well, I won't keep you too long. There's a few minutes.
No, it's okay. I'm all packed. It's all good. No worries.
Good.
But it's a great band. It's a dance band. You know, it's a big band too. There's like 10 members in that band.
That's really nice because you don't see those much anymore. That's really good.
Full horn section and everything. So it's really good. But yeah, you should check out. So it's the commotionsband.com, I believe it is. But you can just look up, you know, the Commotions on YouTube, and you'll see all of our stuff there.
Will you ever dress as a Wookiee for a gig?
No, but I did dress as a stormtrooper. So there's
there you go for the stormtrooper stuff. That's okay. I don't judge you. I'm part of the you know, Star Wars fanaticism as well. So yeah, very cool, Jeff. So what's besides that? What's in the future for you? I mean, of course, the Academy is going to continue. What else is coming up?
Well, I do a lot of like recording, obviously with the pandemic as well. So I have a little recording studio that I've been using and doing some tracks. So now that I'm in my new space, I get to set all that up again. Okay. And do some more things. But I have new releases coming out from the Commotions. We have a third CD coming out, hopefully in early 2020. Oh, actually, probably a bit later, 2022. Yeah. And then Trevor Alguire, I have a new album coming out with him in the next couple of months. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just trying to get as many gigs as possible and have some fun along the way, and still obviously teaching and whatnot. I did some part-time teaching also at Algonquin College, so I'm looking forward to maybe doing a little bit more work over there in 2022. But yeah. So
as you say, keeping busy, keeping
busy. You have to keep busy. That's the goal. Don't stop swimming. That's what.
Don't drown. Well, Jeff, I think we'll stop there. It's been a pleasure to meet up with you, to catch up with you. Seriously, thank you so much for saying yes to us. And I wish you a good show that's coming up, and I wish you all the best for the rest of 2021.
You too. It's been great catching up. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. So, before I let you go, please say your website for the Academy.
Sure. So it's Jeff Asselin's Drum Academy, but the URL is just jeffsdrumacademy.com.
There you go. So check that out. It's a very cool website. And thanks so much, Jeff. It was awesome.
No problem. Thanks.
Take care of yourself.
Take care.
Okay, let's proceed with tonight's episode. The next drummer that we have for tonight, very happy to have her. She's a Canadian metal drummer based in Montreal, Quebec, who's originally from Vancouver. Her primary groups are Conquered Divide, the Anti-Queens, and Dead Asylum. She has also spent the last few years touring session drummer with such bands as Nervosa, and also has toured 20 countries in around North America and Europe. So very busy, and also I think part of Drumeo, if I'm understood correctly. So very busy drummer, very interesting drummer. Let us all welcome Samantha Landa.
Hi, Denis. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Just chilling here in Montreal, which I believe you're also in Montreal right now.
I am also in Montreal, yes.
So you moved from Montreal from BC?
Correct. Yes, okay. 4 years ago.
So what prompted that move for you? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, Vancouver's just, it's very expensive, and just was looking for a change. And I mean, I've always wanted to go somewhere where maybe there was a different language and, you know, a bit of a different culture. And, you know, Quebec's definitely got both of those things. And yeah, I just wanted to try something different. I did French immersion in school, and just wanted to, you know, anyway, there were a couple of reasons for moving, but yeah, just needed a new change of scenery. And the metal scene here is good.
Yes, yeah. We do love our metal here in Montreal and Quebec, especially, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That's great. So how's it been so far in the 4 years that you've been here?
Very good. I mean, we, you know, lost a year and a half of that to COVID, but typically it's been great. And all the festivals are always, you know, amazing. And Vancouver doesn't have as many, for example. I mean, there's a jazz festival here, but also, you know, Just for Laughs, and a lot of those summer festivals, and Mural Fest on Saint Laurent. And there's just so much activity generally happening, and met some really, really awesome people, made some good friends here, and seen lots of great concerts. Really, really love the city.
Cool. It's true because a couple of weeks ago, I went to Jazz Fest for the first time since COVID happened. And it was sort of surreal to be back just outside watching the concert. And it was like, wait, I used to do this before, before COVID, you know? It's so strange, and yet it's so normal. So I know what you mean. And yes, we do have lots of festivals here. My God, Nuit d'Afrique is one of my also favorites here in Montreal, which I haven't been in a while.
Yeah.
Amazing musicians there. So yeah, we're kind of, on est gâtés, comme qu'on dit here in Montreal.
We're very, very lucky. It's great.
So before we get into all your bands and everything, how did it start for you? What was your interest for drums in general?
Well, I wish I could say it was like a lot of other people, which is like, I saw this band or I saw this drummer and I was inspired. It wasn't really like that for me. Not that I wasn't inspired seeing drummers, but it was, so I played classical piano from the age of 4. Oh, nice. And so I was playing piano. And then in grade 6, I had the chance to go into concert band, and they didn't have piano and concert band. So I thought, okay, well, what instruments do they have to learn? And I wanted to learn a new instrument and try something different. And yeah, drums was one of the options. And it basically came down to, they had a drum kit at school. I wasn't going to need to have one at home. It was going to be inexpensive. And it was supposed to be one of the more challenging instruments that my band teacher thought that we could learn. And as a kid, I wanted a challenge. So there was that. And then there were, like, you know, drummers of artists or bands that I liked, but it was really just, I was looking for something new, and the teacher suggested drums as one of the options, and we didn't need one at home. So, well, wow. at the time, my mom made me promise that I wasn't going to get a drum kit. She's like, we're not getting you drums. You've got them at school. Right. I'm like, sure. Okay. I won't ask for a drum set. And then a couple of years later, I think my grandparents bought me one, but yeah.
Right. It's always scary for a parent to go, oh, a drum set in the house? Oh, God. How do we manage 100%. That?
Right. And I mean, we lived in a small house too, with a small garage, and there really wasn't space. And, you know, my dad was working from home, and it would have been really difficult. So when I did get my own drum kit, I didn't get to play it very often, and just due to certain constraints, and I had to set it up every time I wanted to play. And needless to say, when you're like 15 years old and, you know, you're kind of lazy, and well, not everyone, but I was. And so I'm like, oh, I got to set it up in this garage every time I want to play. And when I play, spiders fall from the ceiling. And I'm like, so I just didn't like to practice.
Okay. So
it wasn't ideal.
Okay. But eventually, I mean, you got to practice, you got to get better, I imagine.
Yeah, I really improved by playing with other musicians. So it was only really, I never got into a good practice routine until pretty recently, actually. And really? I've said this in a couple of chats as well. And I also recently filmed a live lesson with Drumeo called How to Trick Yourself into Practicing, because I hated practicing and I never did it. And it's so hard to improve when the only time you're practicing is when you're playing with a band. But that was the case for me. So I started playing in bands when I was like 15, maybe. And, you know, I improved over time just naturally by playing, you know, a couple days a week with bands. But it was more about playing as part of a group versus trying to improve as a drummer at the time.
Well, that's not a bad way to learn, actually, because yes, I mean, you're struggling to learn your own instrument, but you're also sort of learning how to interact with other musicians, what to listen to. Do we suck? Do we not suck? You know, all that stuff that's happening at the same time. I think a lot of drummers that start that way to play with bands in high school sort of gain that sort of listening quality, that jamming quality, that arrangement quality that you don't get from just, you know, practicing 7 hours downstairs in your basement. Yeah. It's
true. And I think that there's a happy medium to both. And I think that a lot of the most well-rounded drummers that I know personally, they've done both. You know, they've spent a lot of time working on their own skills solo, but they've also spent lots of time working with other musicians and bands and learning how to listen and be a good like musician in that sense, and understanding what the other instruments are doing and how do the drums support that. So I think it's great to have a little bit of both.
Yeah, and learning not to make a 4-bar fill during the like verse or, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And they say, drummer, calm down. Like there's singing happening right now. Like you can't be like, this isn't a 4.5 minute long drum solo, or that 4-bar fill is not the time for you to show up.
Did you have any influences when you started?
When I first started, oh man, I mean,
I know it's kind of a sort of a general question, but I'm always curious because I find it interesting where people, you know, start off with, because sometimes they start off with something, go completely different direction, or they stay in that direction. So I'm just curious.
Oh, I mean, I guess in terms of when I first started, I was like 11 or 12 years old. Okay. And my big inspiration at the time, because I was a teeny bopper child, was Zach Hansen from Hanson. He was like a similar age to me, maybe a couple years older. And I was like, that's cool. My God, he plays the drums. And so I was a sick teeny bopper kid who was listening to like Backstreet Boys and stuff. So anyway, I was paying a lot of attention to him. But, when I was like 15 or 16, I mean, I was really into Mike Portnoy, that was big influence for me, and like my kind of groovy drumming when I was that age. And I don't know, it kind of changed over time in terms of who my influences were. But
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And then when does the bands arrive? Is your first band Dead Asylum?
Oh no. I mean, I've been playing in bands since I was like 15. Okay. So let's see. My first band was called The Unified, and it was kind of a grunge rock band. I came in as a temporary drummer when the drummer went to summer camp, and he decided not to come back like to the band. So I was in that band, and we played community center shows, and we're kids. And then I was, I don't know. I had a couple of like garage bands where we didn't play any gigs or anything. We didn't have a name. We just, wrote a couple tunes and played some covers. And I had a band called Life Without Water, which is kind of experimental pop, I guess. I was like 18. And then then I had a ska band called the Friday Nights. And that was with a bunch of my university friends. And then I was in Scythia, and that's folk metal. And that was my first tour. We did Western Canada with Unleash the Archers. And that was like 2009, 2010. And then we started Dead Asylum in 2011. And yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because you seem to be going through a phase of experimenting. What do you want in a way? It sounds like it anyways.
Like style-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried a lot of different things, and my music tastes have kind of changed and progressed over the years. I mean, I've been really heavy into metal since I was maybe 20 or 21. Mm-hmm. I started with kind of like, I used to be into like, I don't know, post-hardcore and screamo stuff and like Alexisonfire and all that, in high school, and Poison the Well and Under Oath and that kind of stuff. And then I got more into prog metal, kind of, Dream Theater and Opeth. And then I got into heavier stuff progressively. And then I got into like death metal and thrash. And anyway, so, I mean, metal is my love, and it's the genre I've been into the longest. My entire adult life, I've been a metalhead. But yeah, I was definitely kind of finding my groove, so to speak. And I still like a lot of those genres, and I have a lot of nostalgia for certain genres. And when I joined the Anti-Queens, for example, I mean, that style is what I was listening to and playing in high school. I was big into like, I don't know, Gob and No Effects and Pennywise, and kind of punk and punk rock and those kind of bands. So a lot of that's very nostalgic for me.
Well, yes, as I stated to you before we started, the Anti-Queens for me, we have plenty of bands to talk about, but Anti-Queens for me was the one that I just went, because I am from that generation of what you just named, Gob and everything. And they're really great. I mean, they're really awesome. You before we can go back, but Anti-Queens, you just joined recently, I believe.
Yeah, I joined right before the pandemic. Worst timing ever.
Were you supposed to go on tour and stuff?
Yeah, we had tours planned. Well, that May we were supposed to do a Canadian tour with the Creep Show. Of course, that didn't happen. And we were supposed to do stuff in Europe, and that didn't happen. So I guess I joined in January of 2020. Yeah, so it's been like over a year and a half that I've been part of the band. And we've been working on a new album for a lot of that. Cool. But I've only played a couple gigs with the band because of COVID. So we played 2 shows together. And actually, when everything got shut down in March of 2020, I was in Toronto with the band. We had 2 gigs we were supposed to play, and then suddenly everything's getting canceled, and it's like, you should probably, you know, everyone get back to your provinces, get back to your cities, fly in from if you're traveling. And I remember being really nervous, like, am I going to get stuck in Ontario? I mean, it could have been worse.
No,
you know, I've got family there. Yeah. But yeah, so it's been an interesting experience, so to speak.
I guess I'm guessing you're itching to go back with them, to go out with them.
I can't wait.
How did that come about? How did that band come about? How did you get to play with them?
So we have a mutual friend in Ontario who recommended me to them, and wasn't sure if I'd be right for the band because I don't live in their province, and you know, I'm a metal drummer, so it was like, well, she's a metal drummer and she lives in Montreal, but you know, you'd love her and stuff like that. So yeah, I went to see. So the band conveniently had a gig in Montreal shortly after I was recommended. So I went to go see the band, see if I liked it and if I thought the band was good. And it was a great band live, and everyone was cool. And I was like, yeah, this would be really cool. And I knew that they had a lot of plans, like they had tours coming up and shows coming up. And I was just missing playing more shows, I guess, because the bands that I've, you know, well, Dead Asylum, you know, Mike and I started it in Vancouver, and then I moved to Montreal, and we've tried to keep it going long distance, and especially with filling in with other bands that aren't from Canada. So, I mean, I was touring with Nervosa, I was touring with Intro Till. So they're from Brazil and Mexico. And so I've been playing with bands where I don't get to practice with locally, or I don't get to play very often. It's like you meet up with the band for a tour. Even Dead Asylum, I live across the country now. So I was looking for something where I could just kind of scratch the itch too. But I wanted to make sure it was a good band, of course.
Yeah, of course. No, of course, you go see out the show if you know if it fits for you, you know, because yes, how can I say, it's got to work for you too, you know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess it was a yes then.
Yes, I went out to Toronto and auditioned, and then they're like, "Do you want to join?" And I'm like, "Let me make sure. Let me think about it," you know. So I was like, "Let me sleep on it," you know, just to make sure, you know, because I don't know, it's an important decision. I mean, some people, I guess, think it's really easy to join a band, but I hadn't joined a new band. Like, I hadn't joined a band since 2011. So to me, it was a big decision.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to have time to commit for it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Let's go back a bit. So you were saying about Dead Asylum, which was the band you formed in 2011. Yeah. So is that still active, or you're saying it's a bit harder to do it because of distance? And if so, how do you do it from distance? Yeah,
it's still active. But we haven't been active, like super active. I mean, it's still a band, and you know, but it's hard. It's hard to make plans. So right now we're planning some shows in January in BC. So I'm supposed to come out for that. You know, COVID permitting, and it's just everything is hard to predict right now, just with like the travel situation and all of that fun stuff. But you know, the guitarist has been writing, and you know, we've been shooting ideas back and forth. But I've definitely been putting more priority on Conquer Divide and the Anti-Queens, just because they've just been more active, and it's tough. It's tough having 3 bands. So I want to make sure I can still contribute as much as possible to Dead Asylum as well. But yeah, it's a challenge, just trying to balance.
And how do you do it? How do you accomplish it? I'm curious. What's your trick?
Well, I don't really have a trick. I mean, having the internet, that's key. Yeah, I don't know. I think, and even with the Anti-Queens, for example, like we've had to write pretty much remotely, where somebody will, like a guitarist will send a song idea or a riff. Usually it's like more of a, here's a verse and chorus kind of thing, and then sending back your feedback. So when I'm sending back my ideas, so I've got an electronic kit. I've got a Roland, oh my God.
Probably a TD15 or
TD20, TD27, sorry. Yep. I am out to lunch. Yeah, sorry. I have a TD27 at home. I love it. It's great. I don't know why I'm blanking on numbers right now. Yeah, so I can use that kit to lay down just tracks, like demo ideas. Right. So I'll just open it up in Reaper, and I'll record some sort of track over it in, you know, MIDI or whatever. I'll send that back, and then I'll get feedback on, hey, we like the drums, or like, oh, maybe try this. And you know, provide feedback as well if I'm like, oh, I love the vocals there, or like, oh, we could do a thing. But for the most part, like I'm writing the drums. I'm like always, I'm pretty much 98% happy with what the songwriters are writing. Like I think they're great songwriters. So I usually like it, and I'm like, great, I'll lay down drums over it, and we do it that way. And then when we finally do get together and jam them live, then we'll work out the kinks. Yeah.
The parts and everything. Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. I watched a couple of videos, of course. You have a very relaxed style. I find it very interesting.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know.
Used to. I've been working on that because I was like, I look like I'm about to kill someone. I'm just like really like tense.
Oh, really? That's not the impression I got, actually.
I appreciate it. It means it's working.
Yeah. But what are you doing then to be more relaxed for your drumming? I'm curious.
You know what was a game changer for me? And it sounds super promotional when I say this because I work for Drumeo. But Bruce Becker's Drum Technique Made Easy course. Total game changer. And it's molar technique. So I mean, that's nothing new to a lot of drummers. They know of molar if they haven't tried it, but it's that like whipping motion, and it has to do with, you take, as Bruce says, it's take the path of least resistance. And it's all about trying to leverage the bounce, like the rebound of the drum head. And it's all about like downstrokes and upstrokes and anyway, so that course literally changed how I drum. It was amazing. Like I don't say that lightly. It's like the one. Usually I don't have like one answer where I'm like, oh, it was like instant. I mean, it wasn't instant, but over a course of a couple of weeks even. And I was like, holy cow! Like this is anyway. Molar technique, 100% would recommend. 100%, and Bruce Becker teaches it really, really well. Yeah.
No, he does. He does indeed. He's one of the ambassadors. But yeah, it's interesting. Okay, well, I just picked up on it. I was just watching it, and I was like, that's interesting because there's a lot of drummers, metal drummers in particular, that are very, I find, kind of sort of holding it like this. And for an anecdote, I remember going to see, a tiny bar, local bands, sort of known metal, whatever. And the guy literally just like dipped his head, took a huge breath, and went, and sort of like went for it. Yeah. Stopped for 30 seconds, did another breath. And I was like, oh my God, he's not going to last like 2 songs like this.
No. And that's how you get tendinitis. And not to mention, it's like, breathe, let yourself breathe.
Yeah. So I was wondering if breathing is also part of it, or is it just a molar, or?
I definitely think breathing is part of it, but it's not something I've been aware of, like in my own body. Like it's not something I'm thinking of, but it's definitely a big part of it. And I've thought about it before, and actually I remember that years ago, because I was noticing, I'm like, wow, I'm really stiff. Like I'm gripping too hard. I'm using too much wrist when maybe in motions when I should be using finger technique or whatever. And I'm like, I am just like putting way too much energy and effort into something when I don't need to, and I'm going to hurt myself. And I remember seeing somebody else chewing gum, and I'm like, it doesn't look good, but I'm like, will this relax me? And it kind of did. Even though I'm like, well, it doesn't look good when you're performing. It's probably not. It's probably not safe. Like you might actually, I don't know, you want to choke on, you want to be eating or chewing on something while you're playing out. You want to choke on it. But just as like an exercise, I tried chewing gum, and I felt much more relaxed because it kind of forced me to like breathe a certain way. It's so funny but I don't recommend doing that as like, don't make that a habit. Don't, it's not good. But I remember just realizing how important it was to just take your mind off of, I was hyper focusing, I think. And I wasn't really, but I also wasn't necessarily living in the moment enough. I was thinking about what was coming up, especially it's like, a lot of drummers, especially like less experienced drummers, especially, it's like you start thinking about the drum fill that's coming up, and you start getting like a bit tense, and then you get to the fill because you have to change the motions or the note value or whatever you're doing, and suddenly it's like they hold their breath and then they play a drum fill, and the drum fill is not going to sound as relaxed because they're just like
there's an anxiety of performing it and do it correctly, and for sure.
So I think breathe, it's important to breathe for sure.
But that's a very interesting point what you're touching about, because exactly, you can get too analytical and get to the point where it's not natural. I had a good prof of mine who said the moment you start thinking during the gig, you're dead. You're like 100%. You're like, that's it. Because you're just focusing on this instead of listening and sort of looking at what's happening around you. So yeah.
I think that some of that stress probably comes from not not being prepared, not being as prepared as you should be, maybe with the song when you're playing the gig or whatever, or your session. Because now, who said this? God, was it Benny Greb? I feel like it was like it might have been a Benny Greb thing.
Well, yeah, possibly.
But a number of drummers talk about this. They talk about having like, or was it Michael Shack? My God, I think it was Benny Greb. Anyway, whatever. It was one of these guys.
We'll double check it later.
We'll double check, yeah. So, but anyway, I remember seeing an interview with one of them, and I think it was Benny, who said that you need to have enough processing power. Like if your brain is a computer, or you need to have enough headroom. I guess some people will say that you need to have enough headroom. So if you just learn the part, you learn the part, but you don't like, you don't feel 150% with it. It's like if you can't play that part in your sleep, then when you're on stage or you're in the studio, and because it's going to be more stressful and you're going to be maybe a bit nervous or whatever. And even if you aren't consciously nervous, you think you're fine, but there's always more pressure and stress when you're in those situations. So it's more likely you're going to mess up, or you're going to be stressed, or you're not going to be able to play it to your full capacity. But if you've got, if you sit down and you don't have any headroom, you don't have that space, between your ability and where you should be playing.
Being relaxed, if is what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if this is a part you can literally play in your sleep, it doesn't matter. First of all, you're probably not you're probably not worrying about your playing, because you're like, I got this. I know that I can literally play this with my eyes closed. But also if you are stressed, or there's something wrong, like something's not working, or something broke, or something, you've got a tom in the wrong position or whatever, it's like you're able to still perform at 100%, even though you might not be mentally there at 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the whatever's happening will not create that distraction, or whatever, to not be able to do the fill or the groove or whatever. Exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. Well, anyways, glad that you're feeling more relaxed, and I just kind of picked up on the fact that that's the case with you, anyways. There you go.
Awesome.
Let's continue. I have to ask this question. It's something that's interested in me, because I am not a female, of course, but talk about just a little bit, not too much, about being a female in the music industry and the drumming industry. You've even made a video about it, saying, you've had some comments. And
I have.
And it's interesting, especially today, because we have so many talented, drummers, girl drummers today. It's, that I think it's pretty equal to me. But I do remember 20 some years ago when I started that, of course, there was, a lot of guys than female drummers said at Drumfest or whatever. But why do you think that is? Why do you think there's some sort of, I don't know, sort of, I can't find the word, but sort of like this view about female drummers that, oh, well, you're good for a girl, or that sort of.
I have a number of opinions on this. So one of the reasons that I think that, well, let's see. One of the reasons that I think that there's still a lot of people putting women in a different category is, I think that a lot of people still see it as a novelty, because they're not used to seeing girls and women on drums. And, until more recently, especially with the internet, YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. And now, people are encouraging girls to play drums, and they didn't used to. They discouraged girls from playing drums. And I mean, I'm in a group on Facebook, Drummer Girls United. It's got like thousands of girls and women drummers in it. And there's a lot of them who are in their 50s, 60s plus. And a lot of them have said, I've just started drumming recently, and because I was discouraged when I was a kid from playing drums. They said it was a boy's instrument, and that they wanted to play drums when they were kids, and they didn't play drums because they were told that it was not for them. And now in their 50s or 60s or even 70s, they're now learning drums finally, because they feel like there's the support, and that they're saying, well, why would I listen to these people? I'm going to do it. Better late than never. So I think that that's part of the reason why we didn't used to see as many, because there weren't as many, because people were being told this is a boy's instrument, and there's no, girls don't play drums. And that was a big problem, especially in schools. Teachers and drum teachers, even music teachers, were saying that, no, you cannot play drums. Not everybody. There was obviously that didn't dissuade, people like Dorothea Taylor or like Viola Smith from playing. They were, they did it anyway. And I commend the people who pushed through and said, no, I'm not going to listen to, you tell me that. And this isn't, this is many decades ago. But today I think there's a lot more encouragement. And so I think we're seeing a lot more girls on the drums, which is amazing. It's so awesome. But I think there's still a little bit of maybe, like skepticism. And the other thing too, is I think anytime you're part of a minority group, you know, people tend to generalize. So if somebody sees a girl drummer and they don't think they're very good, suddenly all girl drummers aren't good. And that the reason that this girl isn't good is because she's female. Okay. That it's not because she's her own person, an individual who hasn't been playing very long, but they're like, this is an example of why girls shouldn't play drums, because she sucks because she's a girl. It's not she sucks because she's new at it, or she sucks because she's not practicing. It's no, she sucks because she's a girl. So there I think that there's that. And even now, people who say that they support, or you know, that they like women drummers, a lot of people still put us in a category. You know, a lot of people are ranking us against each other, you know, because people like ranking their favorite drummers, or they like ranking, but they rarely compare women drummers to men drummers. It's usually who's your favorite woman drummer, or she's the best female drummer, or you know, or they see a drummer, they're like, well, she's not as good as Annika, or she's blah blah blah, or this, or she's better than Sheila, or whoever, whatever, you know. They rarely compare us to men, and I think it's because they're still putting us in a separate category. And I think that that's something that we haven't, you know, not everyone does that, but there's still a lot of that. And I think that that's something where we can still something where we have work to do on that. But
no, there's a lot of truth there, what you're saying, exactly. Because, you know, I have, you know, looked up, look up this person, whatever, and you look at the comments and it's like, oh, really? Wow. Like, well, I prefer and I'm like, why? Like, this is this person's way of playing. Just that's it. You know, there's no this or that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, people just love comparing, and it's always to other women. And so to me, it's like, okay, well, they're still putting women in a separate category. You know, it's like imagine having a contest where it's like you're comparing death metal drummers, thrash metal drummers, funk drummers, rock drummers, jazz drummers, and then women drummers. You know, it's like all of these other categories. It's like it's just, you know, men in different genres, and then they have like, oh, and here's a category for women. So anyway, it's luckily, you know, I haven't seen too much of that, but that's just sometimes how it can come across. But you know, like the video I made where some of the comments that I've had about being a woman, I guess, drummer in the metal scene, especially. And it's not just men that say it. It's a lot of the comments have come from other women. And a lot of people think, oh, you hate men, and you think men are. I'm like, no, a lot of the people saying this are women. It's not just guys saying these things, or you know, or women making the assumption like, oh, you're in a band, are you the singer? You know, sometimes it's not. A lot of the assumptions come before they know I'm a drummer. So they find out I'm in a band, they all ask if I'm the singer. And that's a really, really common thing. Or, you know, I'm at the merch booth and I'm a girl, so I must be the merch girl. Whereas, you know, anyway, so it's just what people are used to seeing. And so they're making assumptions based on what they're used to seeing. So I'm not gonna get mad at them for that. You know, it's more, exactly. It's not about that.
Well, it's a great moment opportunity to educate, if you will, and not actually like, you know, get mad.
Exactly. Like, I'm not going to get mad at them. You know, I'm going to say, no, I'm not, you know, I don't sing, I'm the drummer. And then they're like, oh my God, really? And whatever. But it's just something that I've noticed over the years. And I had a lot more comments, like negative comments towards me when I was younger, when I was a teenager. I don't get as many now. And when I do get them, it's usually you know, idiot in their basement, and I'm not really worried about them. You know, you know, it's never a good musician that's saying these things, and I think they just feel like they feel threatened, or they have something to prove. And you know, I've felt very supported as a drummer in the music industry by everyone almost. I'd say actually I've never really had a really strongly negative experience from someone who's like an experienced drummer in the industry. Everyone's been very supportive. So I think that the pros, you know, they don't have anything to lose. They're not threatened, you know, they're there to support. And I love it.
Yeah. Come on, we're drummers. We all love each other.
We're all family. You know, like,
Exactly.
don't, you know, why are you concerned that there's a woman playing and you're playing the same instrument? You should be excited, you know? And when I see, you know, and sometimes there's the other side where it's that, oh my God, it's my future wife, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't mind those either. Cause I'm like, okay, at least they're excited that there's women who love the instrument they love.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it's silly, but I'm not offended by that, you know?
No, it's interesting. And again, I don't want to continue too long on the subject, but but it's great that you're talking about it because there's a lot of truth of what you're saying. But it is interesting, of course, being myself just, you know, male, you know, it's interesting to have your perspective because I've interviewed other female drummers and they've kind of said the same kind of thing. And it's always interesting to me anyways, that's the case. But anyways, I'm glad that it's everything's okay, at least in your working circle, and everything's cool. So that's
getting better. Yeah, it's getting better.
Quickly, a few minutes left. Basically, you're associated with Los Cabos, Sabian, and Mapex. How's it been to work with those companies, and how did you get associated?
I love them. They've been nothing but good to me. Obviously, I love the products, and those have been, you know, it's been great. Yeah, so let's see. The first brand that I worked with was Los Cabos drumsticks, and that was around the time I was touring with Nervosa, and I had a friend who is an artist with Los Cabos. He said, hey, are you interested in, you know, have you tried these sticks? You know, I would love to, I can introduce you to my rep. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I have tried the sticks. And I knew another Los Cabos artist in Vancouver. And yeah, I was like, yeah, I'd love to talk to the rep. So that's how that came to be. And then Sabian, I've played Sabian since I was a kid. I've always been a loyal Sabian lover. So I was like, and I was approached by other cymbal companies, and I'm like, no, I'm not interested. Like I will not rest until I work with Sabian.
It's even nice.
Yeah, no, I'm very brand loyal to Sabian. So that was just, you know, I reached out to them and I basically pitched myself, and I was like, love your brand. I love you guys. It's been playing forever. And so I just kind of kept them updated on what I was doing. And eventually we had a chat and we made it work, and they've been awesome as well. And then Mapex came through Los Cabos. So my rep at Los Cabos knew I was going to NAMM coming up and said, hey, have you ever tried Mapex? Would you be interested? I think you're looking for artists. And I was like, yes, because I played a couple of their snares. I played one or two of their kits before, and I'm like, yeah, it's, you know, I had no loyalty to the brand I was playing before. And, you know, I didn't have a Mapex kit at the time, but I wanted one. And so I met that guy at NAMM, and we talked, and I played some of the gear, and I was like, yes, this is great. And man, Mapex has just been so supportive. I can't even explain. Like, I've gone down to the States to film a couple music videos with Conquer Divide. They will ship me the kit, you know, beautiful kits. When I was touring with Dead Asylum, and they hooked up a rental kit there. They've hooked up a couple of rental kits for me with, you know, local stores, and they've just been so supportive. Oh my God, like Mapex is just like, the team has been fantastic. Both in the Canadian and American reps have been amazing, and Sabian, like I got a tour of the Sabian factory, and they've been amazing. And the whole, I mean, it's like especially Sabian and Los Cabos, they're both family businesses. Right. So it's just so good to get to know them, and just the people are amazing. And same with Los Cabos. I got a tour of the Los Cabos factory, and again, that family's great. And they got dogs that hang out at the office, and everyone's been amazing. My God. Yeah. I'm very, very lucky.
I still have a B8 ride from like 19 something.
Oh yeah.
I will not get rid of. I just don't know why. It's sentimental, but it just has that ring to it.
Yeah. If you still play it, or does it kind of hang out?
From time to time, it hangs out. But from time to time, I'll pull it. I was like, oh, I remember this, you know, because it has that definition, you know, that B8 definition to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time. Quickly, what's up for you for the year and the next year coming up?
Oh boy. So the Anti-Queens are going into the studio soon for a new album. Conquer Divide is also recording a new album. Got some shows and hopefully tours if they happen. They're all planned, but it's like, who knows, because stuff's getting canceled. So anyway, there's tours planned with Conquer Divide, and the Anti-Queens haven't been announced yet. And then hopefully some shows with Dead Asylum. And I've got some videos coming out with Drumeo.
Cool.
Oh man, what else? I've got something else coming out that I can't talk about yet because it's not complete. But just follow me on social media, follow me on Instagram, and I'll say what that is.
What's the official address they can reach you?
You can find me at Instagram.com/slandadrums or slandadrums. I think I'm Sam Landa Drums on Facebook. I'm on TikTok as Slanda Drums. My TikTok is just goofy stuff, like complete, just ridiculous, silly stuff. Like, don't go there if you want serious drumming, but it's all just silly stuff. And then I've got Twitter, but I don't use it very often. And I'm on YouTube and just, yeah, but I'm most active, I'd say, on Instagram.
Okay, cool.
Slanda Drums. Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Yes, there's a show in December that is Danko Jones and I think the Anti-Queens in Ottawa, my hometown.
That's right. We are touring with Danko Jones.
Yeah, which I will most probably check out because, like I said, I'm Anti-Queens fan and Danko Jones has been quite an artist that I follow over the years. So I wish you success. I wish you that tour goes on. I wish you all the best in 2021 and 2022. And thank you so much, Sam. Thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been great to chat with you. And yeah, this is awesome.
Okay. Have a great day.
Take care of yourself. Bye.
So thank you so much for being with us tonight. That was the end of our show. Come back next week for another episode of Drumfills Cafe. Until then, stay safe and all the best. Ciao.